Hi everybody who's joining us. We are in the school library today, so I thought we would record the next chapter from here. Okay, so we're reading The Mystery of the Hidden Gold. We're on chapter 5, A Long Line of Busybodies. Mrs. Loveday, Scott almost choked on his coat. We didn't know you were there. Oh, don't mind me, little old me, dear. I'm just cleaning out the freezers for Dotty. Perhaps that explained her outfit. Mrs. Loveday was wearing her cycling helmet and pulling off oven gloves and a ski jacket, although it didn't explain the trainers. They'd clearly been designed for a target market of 7-year-old ballet dancers rather than 70-year-old cleaning ladies. The laces were pink and glittery, and lights flashed on the heels with every step. Nor did it help Scott get his head around Mrs. Loveday's comment. Yes, she had a black belt in advanced gossiping, but surely even Mrs. Loveday's scandal detectives couldn't pick up events that happened over a century ago. They all stared at her. Old Bob chuckled and rubbed his chin. Irene Loveday. We may be old, but we're not that old. Rumours? What are you rabbiting on about? Mrs. Loveday ignored him, pulled up a chair and gave the teapot a hopeful swill. Emily took the hint and fetched her a cup. The old lady settled herself like a hen on a nesting box. I couldn't help hearing you kids asking about the wreck of the Empress. Now, my old granny used to tell a story about that night. She wasn't one for idle chitter-chatter, of course. Jack snorted and pretended it was a sneeze. Of course, Jack murmured. He was having trouble keeping a straight face too. It seemed Mrs. Loveday came from a long line of busybodies. Mrs. Loveday smiled at him. Scott had been her favourite nice young man ever since he'd carried a box of paper towels from her bike trailer to the Castle Museum during Operation Treasure. Well, technically, Jack had carried the box, but Scott had been more than happy to take the credit. Well, Granny heard from Maud Jenkins at the fish shop that Sally Nancarrow had seen the lighthouse keeper, John Macy. His name was carrying a man from his boat up to the lighthouse in the dead of the night. Emily topped up Mrs. Loveday's tea. Did your granny find out what happened to him? No. Well, that John Mackey was a bit of a dark horse by all accounts. There was some sort of carrying on with the vicar's daughter, but that's another story. All I know is that he kept this mystery man under wraps at the lighthouse. Under wraps, you mean, Scott said. That's right, dear, under wraps. You know, all hush-hush. Mrs. Loveday tapped the side of her nose. And he was never seen again, although Granny did say that men came to the island asking questions about survivors a few weeks later. Foreigners they were. From Africa? Emily asked excitedly. Mrs. Loveday nodded. Yes, Africans, but not black ones. White Africans. She made it sound as if they were some rare species of animal, like snow leopards or giant pandas. Mrs. Loveday slurped the last of her tea and picked up her scrubbing brush. Well, I can't sit around all day chatting. There's work to be done. Her beady eyes flicked to the cafe door, which was swinging open. Oh no, there's that lovely young man who's staying at the lighthouse, Simon Wolfe. Simon Fox, Emily said. Yeah, Simon, Mrs. Loveday said. Over here. Simon Fox turned and smiled. G'day, Irene. Hiya, Bob. Hi, kids. Irene? Scott was impressed. Simon only had been in the Castle Quay a couple of days, and here Mrs. Loveday's new best friend already. Such a nice young man, Mrs. Loveday said. Bought me a cup of tea and a Bakewell tart when we were in here sheltering from the storm yesterday. It's so rare to find young men who make time to talk to senile citizens these days. Senior citizens, would that be, Irene? Simon corrected kindly. Scott was even more impressed. Simon had actually managed to keep a straight face. Jack was less successful. He had to resort to a full-blown coughing fit to prevent the explosion of laughter. Mrs. Loveday glared at him as if he were a hoodie-wearing graffiti daubing, litter scattering, example of all that was wrong with the youth of today. Jack glared back. He had no idea why Mrs. Loveday had taken such a dislike to him from their first meeting, but he was starting to take it personally. "Anyone like to help me out with this bacon sandwich?" Simon asked. "Dottie's given me way too much." Jack grinned. "I'm your man, bring it on." Mrs. Loveday tutted. "Manners." Simon winked at Jack and handed him the plate. Emily had to go to a family party with her parents that afternoon, and Jack and Scott were kept busy for the rest of the day too. An old ash tree in the garden at Stone Cottage had come down during the storm, and Aunt Kate asked them to chop it into logs so she could use them on the fire. At dinner that evening, Scott couldn't stop thinking about the map. From what Mrs. Loveday had heard from her granny, William Maddox had either fled from the white Africans or been killed by them. That meant the gold was still squirreled away somewhere on Gull Island, with only kittiwakes and the gullymawks for company. All they had to do was crack those codes on the map to figure out exactly where to search. F6 said 4, B3. He muttered for the 100th time. It's still not making any sense. Jack shrugged. He was excited about finding the gold too, but right now there was a chicken casserole on the table, and he'd caught a glimpse of the lemon meringue pie in the fridge. Some sort of code, I expect. "Are you boys trying to figure out a secret code?" Aunt Kate asked, peering at them over her glasses as she served casserole and mashed potatoes onto Jack's plate. "What fun!" Jack glanced at Scott. Aunt Kate was so wrapped up in her writing her soppy romantic novels that as long as they came home for dinner and didn't get arrested, she didn't generally take much notice of what they were up to, which was exactly how it should be, as far as Jack was concerned. Adults should be kept in the loop on a purely need-to-know basis. "Yeah," he said vaguely. "It's just this treasure hunt we're doing with Emily." "F6 said 4B3, you say?" Aunt Kate patted her hair, which fluffed up like a halo of white candy floss. A sequence of alphanumerical pairs. Probably a simple substitution code. You'll need to find the key, of course." "The key?" Scott asked. "The decoder," Aunt Kate explained. "It tells you the relationship between the letters in the coded text and the original message. For example, you might reserve the alphabet and use Z for A and Y for B, and so on. Reverse the alphabet." Jack gawped at Aunt Kate. Alphanumerical pairs, substitutional code, decoder. Where did she get this stuff? She must have got it from all those spy thrillers she's into, he whispered to Scott as Aunt Kate was taking the lemon meringue out of the fridge. "I noticed the latest Dirk Hazard one has appeared on the bookshelf." Scott laughed. "And I think she's joined his fan club too. This Dirk Hazard website was open on her computer the other day." Aunt Kate placed the pie on the table. It smelt like heaven, and the meringue was thicker than a 15-tog duvet. Suddenly, Jack forgot all about the codes. Scott took the last spoonful of meringue and leaned back in his chair with a contented, tired but happy feeling. The day hadn't started out that well. Emily switching on the lights and Drift jumping on his head at the crack of dawn wasn't exactly his ideal wake-up call, but hacking up a tree with a hulking great axe had turned out to be much more fun than he had expected, even though his arms were starting to feel as if they might have been run over by steamrollers. And, best of all, they had another amazing mystery to solve. He pictured himself throwing open the lid of a huge wooden chest full of gleaming gold bars. "Tomorrow," he vowed, "I'm going to study the treasure map in detail and copy out the rest of the code. I'm sure I can crack it. In fact, maybe I'll take one of those Dirk Hazard novels to read in bed to get in the zone." Join us tomorrow when it's officially missing.